menopause, because it's such a biochemical and neurological and endocrinic time of transformation, it will bring up all the unresolves, all those trapped, stored energy spots in our body or traumas in the body. We're shaking the fish tank of how this body of ours has lived in this world for 5 decades.
Hello, SoulNet friends.
Welcome, SoulNet listeners.
Hello, SoulNet friends. Today we're talking about the mind on menopause. What's really happening with our neuroendocrine changes during this time and how it all impacts our mental health. We'll also share some helpful resources to support your well-being during this big shift in your body. We've got some candid stories with some tips peppered in and a little humor along the way. So whether you're in the thick of it or just curious, we're here to normalize the changes, share what's helpful, and remind you that you're not alone. Let's dive in. This time astrologically, it's a time of big reconciliation in past incompletes. And it kind of led us down this rabbit hole of exploring like, oh yeah, when there's the unknown and the mind takes over and goes into the place of fear, then it creates these behaviors that compensate to make sure the fear that we're scared of doesn't happen, the threat potential doesn't happen. And in menopause, that can be kind of like how we treat the menopause journey is like, threat here, do this, vitamin supplements, threat there, this exercise, treat the, and it's like chasing symptoms, right? We're chasing symptoms.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the problem with chasing symptoms is that with menopause being a neuroendocrine journey, there are so many symptoms of transformation. How do you chase transformation? How do you chase the unknown?
Yeah.
The only thing we can do is drop into it, surrender, and befriend the process. So that's really what I wanted to talk today about was befriending the process of transformation. Neuroendocrine transformation means we're literally in our second adolescence. We are literally in that chrysalis transforming, the pupa from the caterpillar into the butterfly. And that is like the caterpillar and the butterfly are different creatures, man.
Yeah.
And I'll just go into my own journey. Since perimenopause to menopause, the transition for me, I've experienced anxiety like I've never experienced in my life. I didn't experience anxiety in my 20s, 30s, or 40s the way that I do now entering menopause. So every morning, I wake up with it. And every morning I am utilizing my own tools that I use with my clients on myself. So the kind of 3 pillars that I use in the morning is first befriending the sensations that are coming up in my system. So normalizing all the sensations. I don't really call it anxiety anymore because that's just a label.
Yeah.
It's more that there are big biochemical changes taking place. And in those biochemical changes, parts in my psyche will naturally be hunting for threat. What do we need to do? How do we need to help? And they're all younger parts in me that remember how we used to help in my younger years. But how I used to help myself or others in my younger years, those are regressed responses to life stressors that they're old habits that aren't necessarily useful or functional for 52-year-old me anymore. So the first thing I do is I befriend the sensations and normalize them. And there's a whole process, I can guide you guys through that as we do that. It's like a guided visualization and meditation. And then once I've kind of had feedback from my subconscious, because in that morning time, there's that liminal time that we are still in transition where we can get messages from our dreams, get messages from these younger parts in our psyche. I will advocate for them. So I'll ask these aspects of my psyche, what do you need today? Or what are you curious about today? What support do you need from me? And I'll choose 3 things that I'm appreciating about these younger parts of me. They usually need appreciation from a caring adult, which is current age me. So I'll list 3 things and I kind of write it in my palm because I notice that touching the palm and that tactile sensation of writing on the hand creates a mind-body connection.
Lovely.
And then I also write into my palm 3 people or things that I can in that moment feel love for. And so that creates that mind-heart coherence. And then I start the day with just co-regulating with what's around me. So it might be petting the dog, saying good morning to my partner, giving him a hug or a kiss. And
lovely.
co-regulating just means attuning to, having some quiet moments to feel the vibration of the surroundings of the living things around me.
Presence especially too, right?
They could be human, plants, animals, and even my own cells in my own body and younger parts of me in my psyche. So that's kind of like how I address my own younger parts that wake up with that anxious, threat detecting energy in the mornings, because my body and our bodies are going through so much biochemical changes at this time, you know?
I love that too. I love the attunement piece. Another thing I would add to that is that sometimes when you are grounding yourself in presence like that and attuning, whether you're petting the dog or, touching the tree, or you're touching the earth if you're sitting on the ground, and you're just finding kind of that connection and that rhythm, you can just say to yourself, like, I'm here right now, or we're here right now, and we're okay.
That's often what I say, or what I'll coach people to say. When we connect with like a memory or a sensation of something inside of us, I guide people to say hello to it. So just take a moment to pause and say hello to that sensation.
Yeah.
And then people start to recognize, especially if they're doing this work for the first time, because this is part of internal family systems work, which is one of the therapies that I use, is that they realize, oh, these sensations might actually be my inner child, because they're just getting used to that in the beginning. Like, oh, my inner child is not this like visual that I see of a 7-year-old me that's like talking to me. It's like, it's this constriction in my throat.
Exactly.
It's the perception of threat that flushes my face.
It's the upset tummy.
Exactly.
It's a memory from a lived experience.
It's visceral, right?
That most of the time was repeated over years. The experience had a theme, and that theme created a nervous system response of like either shutting down, and the spectrum for that could be mild to extreme, or the response could have been activation, like run away or defend myself or fight back. People pleasing is also a nervous system response. We're silencing our own needs in the moment because it's dangerous to have needs in that moment. And then we abandon ourselves to meet the need of the other. So that energy of our own needs wanting to be expressed naturally gets frozen in our own system. And then we kind of give that energy to the other. And then it creates this like situation where our system is very, looks calm on the outside, but there's a lot of turbulence on the inside. So it creates a lot of conflict. The sensations that would be the consequence of that would be pretty intense internal activity, but not the ability to express it.
Anxiety, really.
Well, anxiety often is the mind thinking to prevent feeling or expressing. So the energy is there that wants to be expressed out, but it gets transmuted into like, oh, over here. Oh, da-da-da-da-da. What about that? Da-da-da-da. Rolodex list. And it allows that internal fight, flight, freeze, or fawn to do something without feeling the original emotions that were not able to be expressed, or the original response that the body may have wanted to do. The body may have wanted to run away or fight back or stand up for itself, because nervous systems are designed to preserve the body. But if we can't, because a caregiver or a situation or a war in our ongoing area is there, then we'll have to adapt. And then it creates all these responses.
It's interesting because anxiety through the Ayurvedic lens is all about the vata. So it's ungrounded energy. So if you stabilize the body, or you find ways to stabilize the mind, it's just about grounding into the present moment. And that can be done through different foods, because exactly, you described it like perfectly, right? All these different things. Like, and that my mind just goes to, oh yeah, that's just air and space just swirling around. It's that little like balloon that doesn't have the anchor, right? It's just like, I'm just floating out here.
Yes.
The untethered soul, right?
Yes.
It's floating
Bingo.
in space. It's got nothing to really keep it connected to the here and now.
That's such a beautiful image, Dana. I think between the three of us collectively, we have incredible resources for how to help tether the soul in menopause.
Yeah.
But the three pillars of just validating the sensations first, kind of like your child has just come to you with a really bad toothache and needs comforting. The stroking and the appreciation that they're having an experience that is painful.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never had this kind of toothache before, and it's confusing to them. And they're really concerned and they're looking up to you for guidance. And you're not a dentist, but like Meg said, we can lead with love.
Yeah.
We can get curious and we can hold the space. And in that process of attuning to the sensations, we get to discover what their fears and worries are. Because that's really what anxiety is our younger parts' fears and worries based on the lived experiences from our past.
Exactly.
Still residing as trapped, stored energy in our body. It's looking up at current age us, or if current age us is not online, which happens, then it'll look towards the partner or the children or other people, which, creates that codependency loop.
I love this.
I feel like every generation has their own things they work through, but I feel like this is really part of our generation, and we are the byproduct of, parents that didn't know how to do this for us. It would be like, you're either seen or not heard, like, just quiet down, stop screaming. Like I remember I was a pretty expressive kid. Big surprise, I know, right?
I know. I in my head, I'm hearing, shut up, Buttercup. I'm like, how is that appropriate for like a little girl with a need? Shut up, Buttercup. Like, it's like this whole like, shut up, and then end it with you're so sweet, Buttercup.
Totally. I had both expressions. I had, the mother that would, rub my back because I had a tummy ache, which was just, me processing my father's volatility. He was quite, he would use, love you, Dad, but he would use the family as his outlet. He'd come home from a stressful day at work and he would like freak out about something crazy. And he would do exactly what you just, said, Meg. The next minute he's making a joke with me. And so I'm sitting there in my feelings and I'm going, wait a minute, you just yelled at me for this. And then now you're wanting to be my friend. And so I had a lot of like nights as a young child where I went to bed and I had this anxious vata energy in my tummy that was not feeling good. So my mom would come in and she would rub my back until I fell asleep. I was fortunate. Both my parents are amazing and they are both like, they have their things like we all do.
Their woundings.
Woundings. I think because I had both of those, it did make it maybe a bit easier than someone that was just being reinforced with one side of that. It was confusing, but it was also, I did feel love, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was just a lot of people, you're right. Like they were not resourced. They didn't have the information back then. They didn't have the space or the time, or they were traumatized from, war and whatever it might have been, bringing that all in, that intergenerational trauma into the parenting piece. Right. I just want to say too, like, it's just so important when I think about how we were raised. And when we had aches and pains, when you were describing like that child coming in with the toothache and just like leading with love and comfort, like as we go through menopause and there's aches and there's pains and there's changes, to your point earlier about chasing the symptoms, it's almost like when like our younger self was trained to do that. Like, how do we fix this? How do we make it so that you're not crying? Because this is just, how do we take the pain away? And sometimes I think the intention was probably good. How do I take your pain away? But I don't know that we have just sat with the pain.
That's what sitting with the sensations is. Yeah. Exactly.
Sitting with the sensations, sitting with the discomfort. We're learning that this is a really important piece.
Yeah. Another piece to add to that sitting with the sensations piece is like soothing the sensations without creating a story around them. So like the sensations are a byproduct of stored energy in the system. All of us, when we were growing up, had to, at some point, doesn't matter if you were growing up in the most functional of families, parents are human and humans are imperfect. Humans cannot meet all the needs of their children. We just can't, because we have our own lives and we have our own ancestral traumas passed on to us as well. So because of that, it's inherent that pretty much every human on earth has some stored trauma inside their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not call it trauma, but it's stored energy. And that's why things like breath work and people sometimes do psychedelic journeys or go on a sabbatical. Whatever it is, it's a chosen personal journey that allows us to move that stored energy from our past. Excavating this stored energy is kind of a lifelong journey, and it's kind of part of being alive. It's part of the adventure, is that we get to revisit these aspects of our psyche. I mean, our psyche is so complex and so beautiful. There's so much splendor and awe in doing these deep excavations.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to the loneliness in our system during times of duress. And menopause, because it's such a biochemical and neurological and endocrinic transformation, time of transformation, it will bring up all the unresolves, all those trapped, stored energy spots in our body or traumas in the body. We're shaking the fish tank of how this body of ours has lived in this world for 5 decades. And so I want to name that many women feel like they're going crazy in menopause. And I have felt it too. I felt moments of being terrified that I'm losing my mind, because my mind is so important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And also my body too. But I've had these moments of like, who am I if I can't think clearly and move properly, right? What I notice as I talk with more women who've either gone through menopause or are in that transition, some of them will be like, "Oh, I don't think I had so many. Menopause was not so bad. I didn't have any hot flashes." Meanwhile, they navigated an autoimmune illness.
Yeah.
So
we forget what's actually connected.
And perimenopause, we've been experiencing since our 30s. We just haven't been, maybe we've been getting the little, belly, muffin top and other things, like things that have slowed down, brain fuzz or whatever. But it's not the typical symptoms that we think it is. It's just a transformation. It's a second adolescence. In adolescence, some of us had zits, some of us had upset stomachs. And it goes back to befriending your process. Befriending means getting to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Megan's second adolescence looks different from Dana's, and looks different from Islena's, and looks different from my mother's, and looks different from her mother's. We can be our best advocates when we get to know the symptoms as friends, like as if I want to get to know Megan, I want to get to know Dana, because they're fun and joyful, and I can share my deepest sadness with them as well. Treat your second adolescence and these symptomologies the same way, because they are aspects of your history that are wanting to be witnessed. And when we can do that, we kind of befriend the loneliness.
Yes.
We befriend the loneliness, because the loneliness is sensations saying, "Hey, we're scared of what's happening. Can we have some presence and some witnessing so that, this journey doesn't feel alone?" And our attention and our awareness is enough to befriend that sensation and be with, and then we can enter the unknown. Because, my God, by 52 years old, we've all had children, we've had careers, we've raised families. We're fucking capable. We have so much capacity. So when we are ventral, when we are in our semi-regulated states, we have so much power. Like the gift of being 52, which is all three of us, is that we're so capable. We have so much knowledge and wisdom to share.
But you have to anchor the container so that you can feel into that.
Befriend the body.
Yeah.
I really love it. I love the befriending, the symptoms. I love befriending your younger adolescent self during this time, because I do think there's potentially a connection in the second adolescence that we're resolving, we're reconciling.
Yes, we're reconciling, exactly.
With our younger adolescent self.
That's right.
So to our listeners, please know you are not alone in that reconciliation, in the feelings that are coming into your body, and we are with you. If we resist and we want to fix and we want to solve and we want to chase, we can go into a deeper state of fear and resistance. And so befriending feels very beautiful.
Yeah. Perhaps we can go into a guided visualization if you'd like me to take you guys there.
Please.
So in this journey of menopause, some of us will wake up or during the day or before bed have patterns of anxious thinking. This is an exercise that can help us to befriend the sensations of whether it's anxious thinking, ruminating thoughts, worries, or repeating thoughts. This exercise can help us to soothe that in our bodies. So I'll invite us to get comfortable in our seats. You're welcome to lie back. You're welcome to adjust your pillow or just find a couple more degrees of comfort. So take this next couple breaths to let your body find a couple more degrees of comfort. And you're welcome to close the eyes, or if the eyes are open, find a soft gaze in front of you or looking out the window. So a couple breaths here, just settling in without changing anything. No change required. Just going to be with what's here right now. And sometimes when we wake up or before we go to bed or during stressful moments, what's here right now is this anxious thinking or repeating thoughts. So notice the texture, just how it feels or looks. Like, is there a fast pace of the energy? Is the energy trying to go somewhere? Is it trying to protect you? Does it have a shape, size? And where is it in the body? Take a couple moments to locate where it might be in the body. It might be overall in the body as well, but just getting curious, noticing where it is. As you notice where it is and how it might look or feel, say hello to it. And just let it know that current age you is here with it. And that you're not here to make it change or go away. And maybe take a moment to acknowledge that maybe in the past it may have felt like it had to go away, or that it wasn't listened to or seen or heard in your body. So maybe take a moment to acknowledge that. I see that you may have been pushed away in the past. I just want you to know that I'm here with you now. You're not alone, and I'm really interested in what's going on for you. And just let your awareness bathe that anxious thinking, the energy of the anxious thinking. Like your awareness is a flashlight, shining light, bathing that energy. A couple more breaths here. And just check in to see if that energy knows or understands now that it's not alone, that it has you here with it. And let it know that you're genuinely curious to know more about it over time. This is not a one and done. You're willing to come and visit it as often as it needs your attention. And as you sit here with it, just check in to see if it wants maybe to sit next to you or close by, or it's just curious about you. Just invite it to hang out with you however it feels comfortable. Ask this energy if there's any one thing that it would like you to know, kind of helping it relieve its burden, because it's been very lonely in its burden. What's one important thing it needs you or wants you to know? In your next few breaths, just receive that information like a caring parent, a caring adult. And then repeat back to this energy what it shared with you so that it knows that you heard it and you paid attention. And then just check in with that energy. How's that feel that I understood that for you, that I witnessed that for you? Just let anything else it wants you to know percolate through. And reassure it that you're not here to change it, you're just here to get to know and understand its dilemma and care about its dilemma. Let it know that you're going to continue to be here for it. You're learning too how to be caring for it. And then thank this energy for being here with you now, for vulnerably sharing its burden with you, because that takes trust and it takes a risk. Because in the past, we may have ignored it or rejected it. So we're owning that now. And as you thank it, let it find a home in your body where it can rest or play or do whatever it wants to do in partnership with you. And if it makes sense to place your hands there and thank it as you bless it to be in your system, unburdened and a part of you and free, just holding that for your next couple breaths. And when you feel ready, you can come back to the room and thank your system.
Thank you, Islena. That was lovely.
That was amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, dear listeners, for joining us today as we explored the idea of befriending symptoms in our bodies, befriending change as we go through our menopausal journey together. On that note, we will be coming back in a couple of weeks with the amazing Shirley Weir. Shirley will be our guest. She leads the community called Menopause Chicks. And this is an informative and enlightening and fun episode you won't want to miss. So until then, we wish you all a restful holiday season. And thank you so much for being with us on this journey.